Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Cinema Wave podcast here at the Culture Wave Media Network, and we have made it to the finale, the series finale of Yellowstone. I am one of your hosts. My name is Darian Scalamoni. I am joined by Liz Seiko.
Hello, everybody.
Life is a Promise. That is the title. That is the name of the final episode of Yellowstone. And we were contemplating last week whether or not this was going to be the season finale or the series finale based on the way that they showed it in the highlight for what this episode was going to be.
Mm-hmm.
Let's start with the obvious. Seems like it's the series finale, right?
They still didn't announce it as a series finale. So I think it's a series finale, though. Fully done.
I agree.
Fully wrapped up, fully finished.
And it was announced, I think we talked about it in last week's episode, but it was announced in the trades that there is going to be a Beth and Rip spinoff series, which I had been saying for a while.
You have been saying for a while.
Been on that train. I knew it was going to happen.
I don't back it, but, you know, I understand they got to make money.
Well, I got on the train. I took it to the train station, Liz, and we got there. And they're getting a spinoff. We got some elements of seeing more of the 4-6s, a lot more this season than we have in previous seasons. And we have another member of the Yellowstone Ranch that goes to the Texas Ranch to join Taylor Sheridan's character. Travis. Is that his name? Travis and Jimmy. So that, to me, also indicates that that might be getting a little bit more momentum going into production, especially because the character who does go there also probably had their biggest moments in this season.
Yes.
We'll get into that when we go further along in the review. And a lot of the theories you had in last week's episode with what was going to happen with the ranch and who was going to buy the ranch all sort of came to fruition. So first of all, we're mind readers. We knew that all of this was going to happen.
We knew it all. We literally knew this entire episode.
I don't think in the history of this podcast and the history of this network have we predicted so many things coming true.
I know, which honestly, proud of myself. I feel like we thought it through and figured it out. But on the other hand, you could say predictable.
Yeah.
So I guess that's the conversation that we're going to get into.
So if you guys hate us in the comments, who gives a shit? Because the reality is this is a show that is baked in its DNA fully. From the start of the show, the craziest thing to me is still that this show debuted in 2018. The show has been on the air for 6 years.
Yeah.
And that was part. So I want to talk about that with you first. We have different viewing experiences because you binged the show. I've watched the show in its inception basically week to week since 2018, which is crazy. I don't even remember the last time I've watched a show for that long, week to week. It was a familial journey for me. My whole family really likes the show. So, but for you, when did you binge the show? And then, like, how was it with the wrap up of everything? Did you feel like you were going to miss the characters? Were there elements that hit you harder?
When did I watch this? I actually think it may have been last year.
Oh, wow. You're like very recent to it.
Very recent because I thought the show was done, like fully finished.
Got it.
And I prefer, like, if I'm watching a show that's been on for a little while, I don't really want to start it and then be hanging around for the last few seasons. I love to watch, like, a fully formed show.
Okay.
And so then we finished the last episode and I'm like, that wasn't a series finale episode. I'm like, what's going on? And then I saw that it got delayed and everything, and there was another season coming out. So I really haven't been with these characters that long, which I think leads into why I feel like they should just wrap it off and not really have a ton of spinoffs going on. I understand if they do one, but I just think that, like, if they start bleeding this out into 2, 3 different spinoffs, why not just keep it? Why not just keep the show running as it was and have all of it just be like going to the other characters?
Yeah, like just spanning them in wherever they are in their own lives.
Like, why do 3 different spinoffs?
Yeah, I can understand that. I think that the other thing is with Taylor Sheridan as a creator, and I don't think you don't watch any of his other shows.
No,
right?
This is the only thing.
Okay, but you are aware of his mystique.
Monopoly.
He is the biggest television creator of the last, I don't even know, decade and a half. Like, he has currently, like, it's like him and Ryan Murphy are battling for, like, who can make more television in a shorter amount of time. Because just with Paramount alone, Taylor Sheridan, I believe, has, like, 11 shows on streaming and cable put together.
Which is crazy.
Crazy. You got 2 other Yellowstone prequels, with 1883 and 1923, Mayor of Kingstown, which stars Jeremy Renner. Lioness is always Aldana, Nicole Kidman, Morgan Freeman. You have Landman that just came out with Billy Bob Thornton and John Hamm, and he's getting like big name talent to come onto these shows. And I think that maybe he wanted to just end this like proper, like Yellowstone proper in a way where he could just say, okay, I did what I could do with it. We told the full story, because I do still think, which I said early on, I wonder if you feel differently now after watching the finale, that so much of this show is centered around John. The whole thing is centered around John. Now, his family still obviously plays a major part of it, but even if you just think about, there's a 6-episode wrap-up of this show, and 4, maybe 4.5 episodes are fully surrounding the aura and the allure of what John Dutton is and was to the show. And I think that that's why he's like, I need to put a bow on this, and then I need to move on. Yeah.
No, I agree. I think that the show definitely possibly could have kept going if Kevin Costner stayed on it. However, when we talk about like the dip in this show as a whole, I think it's because they got way too involved in the politics of it, which John's character, there's no way for him to then have gotten away from the politics of it all. So as long as his character was in this show, it was still going to be involved in politics rather than the whole cowboying and ranch life, which I think the whole element that people truly love about this show in Yellowstone is the cowboy ranch life. That's what people want to see. That's what people find interesting, because it's not something that at least us from like the metropolitan area know anything about or have any experience with, versus politics. Yeah, I can watch anything about that. Like, I don't need to see a show about that.
Yeah.
Which I actually think that they probably had a slightly different and maybe more riveting season than they would have if John's character was still alive, because it would have just been all about politicking and who can give a more coded speech than the other and who can get more money this way, versus this was like, we lost a character just because of like cowboying instances, you know. We got to have more moments with them just like, I don't know, herding cows.
Yeah.
Which they haven't really had in a few of the last seasons for me.
It's true. I think that I agree in terms of, I think the way that they were forced to wrap it up made it a lot more
sentimental, I think.
I think not only that, but it also just made it more appealing week to week. Like it was something that you were more excited to watch, where, and I love how you brought up just the sort of central location and what that means, because it reminds me, like, everyone's always like, oh, it's like Sopranos with ranchers. And like, it's not. The quality is not that good. Not as good as Sopranos, in my honest opinion. But it is melodrama set in a place that feels foreign to everyone else.
Yes.
And we're from New Jersey. And so Sopranos feels like people we know.
Yes.
But to everybody else, they're like, these characters are insane. And there are people that don't understand an Uncle June. There are people that don't understand a Silvio, right? That is what is the allure of this show, is that people can transport themselves to a location where they can live out this, man, it's my rancher Sunday.
No, literally like, the amount of times I'm like, I should start taking up horseback riding.
Yeah. Like, let me just go buy a lasso and just lasso my husband or wife every Sunday. Like, that's really like what, but this show, it just makes you feel something different than a lot of, it's like, I don't watch the show. Tell me if I'm wrong, but it feels like it's similar to what Shonda Rhimes can do with like Bridgerton, right? Like she completely
1000%.
She engrosses you in this very different.
Put me in that corset, get me in a ball.
Exactly.
Ready to go.
They just completely engross you in a different environment and world that you can dive into. Now is the reality though of, this was my gripe, okay?
Hit me with it.
It all just feels very rushed. And I understand that now this finale episode we get is an hour and 26 minutes of runtime. So in terms of runtime, and it's the series finale. So I understand that we're still getting the time we needed to get to these characters. But it's even like we talked about last week with Jamie and his interaction with his ex, right? We don't see him again until he's practicing his speech. He does his speech very quickly, and then he gets into the fight, and we'll obviously know what happens. Spoiler alert. If you're watching this, we're going to get into spoilers at this point. You've been warned. He finally gets killed.
He dies.
And it just felt like, despite the fact that we wanted this, and a lot of people wanted this.
I think this was like episode like 2 or 3 of the review when we were like, Jamie has to die at the end of this season.
100%. And I think that it was just that whole thing, though I agree the politicking was getting not as appealing week to week. It was adding a different foil where you didn't necessarily know what was going to happen all the time. Okay. Where I think that once you killed John off, there weren't many options. You know what I mean? That's why I think Casey was such an important character this season, because it was the first time that you saw Casey go rogue again, going back to a life that he had left, and he worked so hard to leave. You know what I mean? With the spiritual journey. And I think that if you look at all the characters, right? My favorite complete arc from beginning to the end of this show was 100% Casey. And I never thought that I would get there based on the way that we ended the first half of season 5. But every element of his character that was built upon since the beginning of the show is completely redeemed by the end. And all the other characters, and part of this might be because of the spinoffs, is that it's very like, oh, okay, so now Beth just bought a ranch in Texas. And now she's...
No, they're in Montana.
Are they still in Montana? Okay, did you look it up? Because I thought Dylan was in Texas.
No, they're in Montana.
Is it? Okay. So, but then they stay in Montana, but then they just decide to do the same thing. So they're just going to do the same thing, but it's going to be theirs, and it's not going to be attached to their dad. And... it is what it is.
They're going to make a living.
Yeah, they're going to make a living. Jamie's dead. We knew that was going to happen. Rainwater gets the ranch, which I like Rainwater's arc too, because it takes you back to...
I loved that part. I think that they actually did that very well of just giving... honestly, like doing a full circle back to the first season, because I feel like Rainwater's character was so prominent in those first early seasons, and to now bring it back to him actually getting the land, I think is just a really nice way of finishing it. I
agree, and I'd love to. I haven't read anything from Taylor Sheridan yet. I don't know if he's done any interviews. But part of the reason I feel that the Rainwater and the Casey stuff probably was the best is because I think it's the things that have been in his DNA since the beginning of the show.
Yeah,
I think he was like, this is how I want these two characters' journeys to end. I want Rainwater to own his land again, and I want Casey to have a fully wrapped up thing where he goes back to his past, and then he has the moment again with the wolf at the very end. He owns the ranch, which was hamstringing him throughout 5 seasons. And with Rip and Beth, I don't know if part of it is because... they're the most popular characters, and that's what the audience... like, I don't know. I don't want to assume. But it just felt like...
you didn't like Rip and Beth's ending, is what I'm getting.
It's not that I didn't like their ending. It's just like, again, it's all too... it didn't feel like it was like...
it was too easy?
It was too easy. And it didn't feel like
what would you rather have had them end it?
I don't know. I think that one of those characters dying, not for the finale, I'm saying along the journey of where we ended up, would have been more appealing.
Rip or Beth dying?
Yeah, and I love both of them.
Oh my God. There was a moment where I thought that they were going to flip it in the fight scene and have Jamie kill Beth.
See, my brother said he thought it would have been crazy if they did that.
Wild. Because then Jamie would have died because Rip would have killed him.
Yeah.
And then what? Rip's just there like...
would you have liked that ending better?
No.
So you love Beth's character though, too.
You know what? I wouldn't have liked it because I think at the end of the day, Yellowstone... okay, kind of like people are like, oh, it's like The Sopranos. No, Yellowstone is a little bit more heartfelt and a little bit more heartwarming than The Sopranos. And if they ended it with one of the most beloved and beloved characters dying like that, I think people would have been like, so she doesn't get any happy ending.
Well, that's
because Beth's whole arc is that she's just like fighting for something and fighting and fighting and fighting and fighting, and it's like, what does she get then at the end? And at least in this finale, she gets to have a little bit of peace, and she even says like, I'm getting happy.
Yeah, which
is like, that's all that you can hope for a character that you love.
I think it's hard though too, because then there's other moments throughout the show that are very cutthroat. Like, I mean, think about early on in the show when, what is it? It's either the premiere or it's within the first couple episodes that their other son dies. And he's never mentioned again because he's dead. He's never mentioned again throughout the whole 5 seasons. This is another Dutton kid that we never hear of and we never see ever again. Like, I agree with you. I think Yellowstone is a little bit more heartfelt than The Sopranos, but I still think it has these moments where it's like, no, this is like a dog-eat-dog world. And like, the thing that matters to me most is my ranch. And I think that, again, Beth's biggest motivation is that she wants her brother dead.
Yes. Like, and she got that.
She got
it the way that she wanted. The one thing I will agree maybe slightly with that I've seen online about people's gripes is that the, Wyoming is where they have just all the dead bodies?
Yes, I think so.
I think it's Wyoming. we just nothing ever accumulates from them just throwing all of these bodies over the past couple of decades into this hole in the earth, essentially. So I think that's one thing, is they were like, a lot of people online were upset that didn't come to any fruition.
I think it's gonna have to come into play again when we get a spinoff show, probably.
You think? You
Yeah.
think but that's not a spinoff then. That's just like continuing the story.
This is their way of doing it, I think. I don't know though. I don't know. That's why the whole Beth and Rip thing also, I just wish it wasn't happening, because to me it's like, where do you go from here?
So I think I would, now that we're talking about this, I think that I would like maybe a little bit more of the spinoff if they went fully to Texas and then made it like Beth and Rip are competing almost against the 4-6s and like trying to start their own ranch in a way.
That wouldn't happen though.
Why though?
Because Travis and Rip are best friends. It would have never happened.
Yeah, but Beth is a businesswoman at the end of the day, and she wants to be the bigger business.
But that's not in Rip's DNA, and Rip would never let that happen.
I guess.
Rip's a rancher at heart. He can't. It would have to be, I mean, again, like, I don't think his whole mentality is dog eat dog. I think his whole mentality is, and my brother actually brought this up when we were watching, because we were talking about, he's like, do you remember the fight scene between him and Casey? And I couldn't remember. See, you probably remember because you watched it more recently than I did. I think it's like season 1 or season 2. But it's like, you forget that. And then you get that moment at the end too, like the first time I think Rip ever calls him brother. Mm-hmm. He's like, I'll see you soon, brother. And they had that moment where they're like, oh, like, you're my family. Like, I fully realize this now. Like, you're here for my sister. You're my brother-in-law. And it's crazy to think about where they were when John was trying to basically push Casey to get to a point where Casey wanted to take over the ranch, and he was going to bat for it. So I don't know. I wish that the show ended. I wish that the show ended and we got no more Yellowstone. Genuinely.
No spinoffs.
That's what I would have hoped for.
Me too. I agree. I don't think that they need spinoffs.
I agree.
I think that they're just trying.
It would have been so much cleaner if it ended. And I even if, like, let's say they announced a spinoff a year from now, I think I'd be happier even with that, compared to now knowing
that there is coming one.
That there's going to be something happening. And the thing is, boomer bait, sorry everyone, is that everyone's going to read all these articles about Yellowstone. And that's why, like, there are multiple people that I've talked to that watch the show, that are viewers of the show, that have read all these articles, that know that. So then you're going into the finale being like, oh, I know what's like there. Yeah, they're just setting it up. And that's what you said, easy. But to me, it's maybe not necessarily easy. It's just predictable. And I don't love that. I don't love that something as big as the show didn't try to subvert our expectations a little bit by the end of the show. But at the same time, sometimes that's not really what Yellowstone is.
No, I don't think it is. I don't think they were going to give us some shocking ending. I don't know. I keep going back to The Sopranos. Like, they weren't going to give us an answer like an ending like The Sopranos finale was. They're going to give us a very sweet, a very sentimental, like they even gave us that huge like voiceover like part when they're just like going over, which is a setup for
No, you don't know who that character is.
Isn't that a setup for this show?
1923?
Yeah, right? Isn't that the voiceover from that show?
It's a voiceover from that show, but it's actually a character from 1883. And she narrates 1923.
Okay.
So it's a character that is literally hundreds of years old.
Yeah, which, like, I don't know. We're starting to get into, like, Marvel territory where it's like you need to get this reference because you need to watch this first. But then if you watch that before that one, then you won't understand that. And then you start losing people. Get the
fuck on board, Liz.
No. Just make it one show. Make it one show.
Get on your old school wagon, 1883.
I don't want to.
Grab all your carrots and just hop in and just go for the ride.
I don't want to.
She's like, please, no.
I knew right away because I was like, I don't recognize any of I don't recognize this voice, but it's got to be related to one of the other shows.
Don't you even wish, though, like we got something at the end, even if it's something with Rip and Beth, where we didn't see them necessarily like on the ranch? Like, let's just have them driving somewhere.
Her driving. And
fucking
just
anything that could leave anything up to interpretation. You know what I mean? Like, and I think that's what bothered me. And I, again, as a whole, as a season, a second half of a season, and as a series, I still really like Yellowstone. It made me want to go back and watch some of these stories and see how things played out from the beginning. But I wanted the show to challenge me more in the end. And kudos to us for predicting everything. But, like, I didn't think every single aspect of this was wrapped up in a way that I was hoping for as a viewer.
Well, the pacing as a finale was a little weird. Like, why did we have a 4-minute concert?
Oh, with Lainey Wilson?
Yeah.
I thought the same thing.
I was like, I got half of it, and then I was like, Jesus Christ,
the whole scene.
This is the longest
Yeah, it was a whole song.
concert song ever. That and just him smiling, looking up at her. I was like, I get it. Let's move on. Like, show us some other things. So, I think pacing wise, they were just going for sentimental value. 1000%. They said we're gonna make everybody a little cozy and a little heartwarmed. But we're not going to give you much of a surprise.
Mm-hmm.
Besides Jamie dying, I knew he was going to die. I didn't think Beth was going to be the one to stab him.
You thought it was going to be Rip?
Yes.
Going into it or the way it was playing out?
So I thought going into it that I didn't think that she was just going to kill him right off the bat in his home. Like, going into it, I knew she was going to see Jamie, and I knew that there was going to probably be, like, a huge fight happening.
See, my mom called that.
Did she
My
really?
mom goes, she's going to be waiting in the house. This is what Beth wants to do.
No. Look, that I knew. I didn't think that they were literally going to have a huge brawl in the house. Like, I thought that Jamie would have been a weasel like he always is and, like, locked himself in a room and called the police on her first. And then we would have gotten the last 20 minutes of some, like, crazy police game that like Jamie and Beth are trying to outsmart each other, and then the end is Rip killing Jamie because he like assaulted Beth.
Yeah.
So I was a little just shocked that, and also any gimmick like her being choked and then him walking in at the perfect time to save her life is so cheesy, and I hate that shit because it's like that doesn't happen in real life. She would have gotten choked out and died, okay? And like, I don't know. The fight scene, it was meant to happen that way. I don't know if Beth should have killed him, but they're moving on for her to have a new story of being kind of happy in this like new ranch place. And in order for her to be kind of happy, she needed to be the one that avenged her father.
Yeah, what did you think about that line? Because I didn't love it.
It needed to have come earlier in the episode. It came too late in the episode because now we were all like... It felt
awkward in terms of...
No, it did, because now we were all like, all right, great. So the end of this episode is going to be just Beth going on a tyrant of killing Jamie.
Yeah. And it's, I don't know, like, it's some of that breakneck stuff with the emotion that I think also hurt it this season, because like you were like, they're going for sentimental, and I think that the funeral played well.
Yeah, I do too.
I thought that it was what it needed to be. That was something that I said, I feel like they need to wrap it up that way. I like that every character essentially got a moment with John. And then Beth is just like, fuck this, I'm gone. I'll avenge you, Dad. I'm going to avenge you. Talking about Marvel. She's literally saying the Avengers lines out loud to a casket. To me, it just got like, that was some of the stuff where I was just like, all right, this is just Yellowstone doing the Beth thing, where they're like, let's just make Beth the craziest bitch that's ever been on fucking television.
And she is.
And she is.
Well, and then the other thing, it's like, and then Rip just fills the hole by himself, and he knows her too well, where he would have picked up earlier, like, oh, she's going to go off and do something wild right now. I
wanted him to have more of a moment, too.
You wanted him to break.
I didn't want him to break down.
You wanted him to.
I didn't want him to break down.
Tears?
I wanted him to say something to John. Like, that was what I would, and he did.
He did.
He did.
He did.
But did he?
But what did you want more than him to say, "I'm going to take care of your daughter"?
I mean, just think. I don't know. Like, there's more to Rip's character than his relationship with Beth that I don't think is explored fully in the last season. Like in season 5, I think that all gets abandoned. Like when we get a lot of the flashbacks with Rip, there's so much that you learn about like where he came from and what he's been through. And I would have liked to have seen something wrap up with that. And I felt a little bit cheated by that.
I don't know, because I think it's it sticks to his character of not being a man of a lot of words. And I think he also showed his care for John by wanting to be the only one that filled his
That's
hole.
a fair point. That's a fair point. Okay.
He didn't want anyone else shoveling with him.
You sold me.
Okay, thanks.
All right, you got me.
Okay, thanks.
All right. Favorite moment from the episode and favorite moment from the season.
Ooh, favorite moment from the episode would probably be This is a very small moment, actually. Actually, maybe not, though. When Casey's character is, like, just signed to the papers and he's like, I need a moment. And he, like, walks out. I feel like that was a very deserved moment of his character just, like, taking it in also of, like, how big of a moment this is.
Getting the weight off of himself.
Yes. But then also allowing space for the audience to be like, oh my God, like they really did sell like the place. That's crazy. Like they really sold the ranch and this is it. And I also think it was just a really like well done acted scene.
Yeah, I think that everything with Casey and Rainwater was my favorite thing from this episode. And I loved even like the weight that you feel and the emotion you feel when he offers it to him for $1.25 an acre. When he says like he goes, when you told my dad, he goes, how much your people sold this land for, how much was it? And again, it's still like, I'm sorry I'm beating a dead horse with this reference all the time, but it's like it just always calls back to what John was also thinking. And I love that Rainwater specifically was like, I always told him I was going to take this land from him, and how he talks to the gravestone and how like that to me, it was always about the relationship. People forget because Rainwater hasn't been utilized as well in the final few seasons. But so much of that relationship is based on the relationship between Gil Birmingham's character and Kevin Costner. So I really like the way they wrapped it up for that. My favorite scene of the whole season was definitely the murder of Jamie's. I just thought it was so well done.
Oh, the girl getting shot?
Yeah, and I thought it was so well done.
That was a good moment.
And I thought it was one of those moments where you were genuinely like, whoa! Like, oh my God. And we still had so much to go at that point. I think it's episode 3.
I think so.
That was probably my favorite part.
That was a really good one. I would say my favorite scene of the whole thing, honestly, just because I was very emotional about it, was when they were showing Colby die and like Tater finding out. Like, I'm glad that her character got a little bit of spotlight this season. I think out of all the side cast members, hers was definitely due, and I liked that she also was actually able to act it out and not just kind of like half-ass it. Like she was sobbing pretty much for like an entire episode, and I just really think it was great acting on her part.
So what do you think now about Teeter ends up in Texas, ends up at the 4-6's ranch with Travis and with Jimmy? You don't seem happy about it.
I just like don't think there's anywhere for that storyline to go besides it being funny.
And you don't like that?
I don't know. I just don't think that a lot of I don't think a lot of viewers want to watch funny cowboys unless there's also the contradicting of like a heavy scene along with it. I also think that it's a little weird for Taylor Sheridan to then like make a whole show just about himself playing a character.
Unless he doesn't center it around himself completely.
I don't know. His character came in a lot this last season.
Which was really interesting because he usually doesn't do things like that.
Yeah, like I feel like Travis was only like sprinkled in every once in a little while. And then all of a sudden he's literally having full length scenes that aren't really needed all the time. They're just him like cracking jokes.
It doesn't progress the story at all.
It's just him wanting to be like, don't forget, I'm also acting in my films and my TV shows. Like, what?
Well, he also gets to date Bella Hadid.
So weird. That was the weirdest thing.
That was the weirdest part of the season.
That was the weirdest part.
For sure. Okay. Anything that we didn't cover that you want to discuss? This is a full show we're covering here. I think for the most part, everybody gets their moment.
Yeah, I think Jamie even gets his moment of being a douchebag, looking at himself in a mirror, practicing a speech over and over again.
Yeah.
And then he delivers the speech and he's like, they're all like, oh, we finally have a leader amongst us. And he's like, yeah. So he gets his happy ending at the end of the day.
Yeah, sure.
Before he dies.
Then he's just dead. Then he's just thrown to the train station.
That was one great thing that they did. He needed to go. I
agree.
But no, I think that's it.
Okay, so this is the end of an era. This is the end of a season. We have to give a score. And then I want you to score the show.
Ooh,
if you could do that.
Ooh,
I don't think we've ever covered like a long running series. We did Succession, which was the very first episode we've ever done of this podcast. Giving me the feels.
Succession.
Don't go back and watch that episode. But that was 4 seasons of a show, right? I think it was 4 seasons, Succession.
I feel like it was 5.
I'll double check. Yellowstone, though, we get 5 full seasons that span literally 6 years. A very long show. Succession, 2018 to 2023. So same sort of thing, and it was 4 seasons. So these are characters, their families that we've gone through hell and high water.
Oh my God, you scared me, CJ.
Okay. So give me your score for the end of the season, and then give me your overall score for the show.
My score for the season, out of all the seasons, I'm going to give it an 8.5.
Okay.
What about yours?
I have a much lower score than you do.
Wow. Okay.
I'm going to go 7.5.
Oh. See, I didn't think it was that bad.
I think, well, I'm trying to, again, bring everything together, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think that the first couple episodes, they didn't fully have me. I understood what they were going for. Episode 3, I thought it was huge. I thought it was great. They were building momentum. Episode 4, I thought was well done. Episode 5, we were both sitting there like, yeah, for the penultimate episode, Taylor Sheridan and Bella Hadid hanging out for 20 minutes. Don't know if we needed that to take up half an episode. That leads us to a finale that I feel that, like we talked about, just pacing wise, I thought it could have been paced better this season.
Okay.
And I think that there were certain things that I was hoping for, that I wanted to see out of it, that I didn't see by the end. So the season as a whole, the back half of season 5, I'm going to give a 7.5. Still solid.
Still very solid.
Really great highs, but really weird lows. Mm-hmm. Not like low in terms of like your show sucks, but low in terms of like, I don't really know what you're trying to go for here. And that's where I think...
Which I'm giving them a little grace, though, because they really were thrown off by their lead character. I think 100%. That they did fantastic with the cards that they were dealt for this final season.
I do agree. Series as a whole.
Do you want to go first?
I'll go first.
I have a number in my head.
Okay, I'm going to go 8.5 for the show. I think that when this show was at its peak, it was a show that is going to be in the minds of people pretty much forever because of the peak that it had. It is still to this day, since the show started, the most watched cable network drama for 6 years running, which is insane. Now, the numbers obviously have dipped because we're in a lot bigger streaming landscape.
Yeah.
But it's a generational show. It's a show that connected people of all different ages, mostly adult, but we are on the younger side, obviously, comparatively, and we enjoyed the show as well. I think it could be appealing to any and everyone. Like, my grandmother was still alive when the show was out, and she loved it when it first came out because she loved Kevin Costner. Yes. That was a big selling point. A lot of people were like, Kevin Costner's doing a TV show on cable? This is crazy. And it got people to come in flocks. It led to great characters being developed, like Beth, like Casey, like Rip. Sorry, Jamie, not you. But I just think as a whole, like, the show is one that I will probably eventually return to. Like, it's not a show that I'm just going to leave on the shelf and be like, I'm happy I did my Yellowstone thing. Like, I will rewatch Yellowstone at some point in my life. And I think overall it was a really well done thing. And it introduced us to Taylor Sheridan, who I really love. And like Hell or High Water is one of my favorite movies of the last few years. He wrote that. Like, this gave him his spotlight to make these stories about corners of the world that we don't necessarily see all the time. So 8.5 for Yellowstone, the series, 7.5 for Yellowstone, season 5, part B.
I have a higher score than you, actually.
Whoa! Liz is the biggest Yellowstone fan on the planet.
I mean, I guess it's also because I just binged it all like really recently that it's a very good bingeable show. I'm giving it a solid 9. I think that overall the pacing of the first few seasons is really good. I think that they stick to their characters. They know who their characters are. They're really lovable. There's some that are super hateable, which you also need. This last season, I think it's just hard to score it against the other ones because again, of the situation that they found themselves in.
Mm-hmm.
And they totally could have gone the route of just being like, okay, we're never going to finish this show. We're just going to leave it how it ended and then just like never actually put out another season. But I think it was really smart how they handled it. And just the like the different changes of pace that they made. So overall, I really enjoy this show, and Beth is the best. So she sold it for me.
Beth is great.
Yeah.
Out of all the actors that you got to see throughout the show, not Yellowstone related, not talking spinoffs, who is an actor that you're excited to see more from based on what they were able to do with the show? Is it Kelly Riley?
Probably, but like I feel like she's just gonna stay in this wheelhouse a little bit. Otherwise, I would be interested to see. I mean, Luke Grimes. I'd like to see him do more things. Maybe not as cowboy and get.
That's how I feel
maybe
too.
do more like I don't know, an action film would be. I think he's done one before, but
I want to see him do like I want to see him do something in the vein of like a dramedy, like family thing.
yeah,
Like I don't know why this just popped in my head, but like a
This Is
movie.
Us?
That's weird that you said that. I was gonna say something else that starts with This Is. That's not This Is Us. But that also would be something good. But I don't know. I want to see him do more like movies ensemble. I think like something like This Is Where I Leave You. You ever see that movie?
Oh yeah.
I think seeing him do something in an ensemble dynamic with other siblings could be a nice sort of. I don't want to say you need to like hold his hand into movie roles because I don't think it's necessarily like that. I think he just needs to surround himself with other really polished actors to get out these moments that we see in moments in Yellowstone that I think he's capable of, that his character just has sort of also been that wolf in Lamb's Wool. You know what I mean? Like I want to see more of him doing things with more emotion because we don't see it all the time in Yellowstone.
I agree. The one thing I will say about another character too is Wes Bentley. He's got to get on White Lotus.
He'd be good on White Lotus.
He'd be great as just like a creepy loser.
I think he'd be really good though, and I know it's like it's a little bit too much of the same, but like maybe not in the Western sort of mentality, but like I think him being like a new guest star on Industry on HBO, like I think would be good for him. Like I think he works well in the political sort of regime and the financial world. Like I could see him doing something like that.
Well, my first reference for him was actually American Horror Story.
Okay, mine was Hunger Games.
Oh.
Well, technically my first for him was American Beauty, which was 25 years ago.
You're right.
And he's good at American Beauty. But Hunger Games I felt like, especially that facial hair that he had, was very recognizable.
I forget about that one.
Yeah. Could be interesting.
Could be interesting.
But you want to bid farewell to Yellowstone, Liz?
Goodbye, Yellowstone. See you later. See you later.
Well, that has been our review of Yellowstone, ending the whole entire series, season 5 as a whole. Let us know in the comments, what did you guys think about the finale? We've seen mixed things online. Some people are completely ecstatic with the finale and it was exactly what it should have been. Some people are a little bit more disappointed. They were expecting maybe something different to happen, but we definitely want to have a conversation with you guys in the comments, and we're curious on your guys' thoughts. And all the new viewers and subscribers that have followed us because of Yellowstone, thank you guys so much for joining us throughout the time. I will be watching 1923 season 2. I don't know if Liz is going to be doing that.
I'm out.
She's out.
I'm out.
So I will be watching it. I'll be reviewing it with you guys because I haven't watched season 1, but I'm going to watch season 1 in anticipation of season 2. So I'm excited for that. But definitely like this video if you guys can. Comment your thoughts. Subscribe to us if you can. We're the Culture Wave Media Network. We cover all things film and TV. And we're also on all social media. You guys can follow us underneath me here in the video and in the description. All the links are there. We're on Instagram, TikTok, Threads, Facebook, everywhere. You guys can find us on social media. Please be sure to do so and follow us if you can. Just signing off, I am Darian Scalamoni.
I'm Liz Seiko.
And we'll see you guys next time.
This is The Culture.